Yvonne, and welcome to Inside Indy. And today we're going to be talking about sex trafficking, which is really modern day slavery. In the studio to talk about that and more is Cathy Huff. And you are a board member of You Can Free Us, and president of Fetch Consulting, right?
Correct.
Welcome
Yes.
to the show.
Yes, well, thanks for having me.
You were an integral part, and I believe you put the thing on. It was in a big event at a church on the South Side. Tell us about what happened there a week or so ago.
Yeah, it was just a couple weeks ago. We brought in Sujo John, who is the founder of You Can Free Us, and also is a survivor of 9/11 in the World Trade Tower Center. And we brought him in to not only speak about his story of once he moved to New York City and surviving 9/11, but how that led into his starting You Can Free Us, and where his life mission has taken him, and kind of how that linked up with me. And of course, you know, we've been able to bring Sujo up several times in the Indianapolis area and find some great local churches and even businesses. Before the event at Grace Assembly for God on the South Side, we spoke at a Salesforce corporate event as well.
Okay. So we'll be hearing from Mr. John later in the show. But I want to talk to you because, again, you two partner on this mission to make people aware of sex trafficking, modern day slavery. And the interesting thing about it, Cathy, is, you know, we just don't see it in our everyday lives. And it's so hard to believe that it's going on. So where is it going on in Indianapolis? Are there certain areas? And I know your mission is global, but we want to start at home.
Exactly. Well, and so many times when I'm talking with people, I find that, you know, everybody has a different connection or passion to this. So as much as You Can Free Us is an international organization, there are so many great organizations locally, whether it's Midwest and the state of Indiana, or even just based here in Indianapolis, that people can connect to. Sujo and I fully believe that you need each and every single organization to fight this, because it is such a huge fight. As far as where is it going on right here in Indianapolis, if you look at some of the kind of common denominators or areas of you know, weakness or
Vulnerable
areas, you have different things such as foster children have a high rate of basically being lured out or go missing and put into trafficking. So that's one population that is high risk, is the foster kids. You also have you know, high vulnerability in teenagers that run away. They say literally within the first 24 hours of a teenager running away, 1 out of 3 will be approached by a trafficker that will try to lure them into, generally it's sex trafficking. Sometimes it might be more like labor trafficking, but generally it is the sex trafficking. And so those are kind of all vulnerable populations, but then there's also the fact that there's traffickers that are bringing in women and children across our borders from other countries all over the world. And the moment they are able to bring them here to Indianapolis or wherever they can locate them, they basically take away all of their identification and all of their ability to reach out to anybody for help. And so they completely isolate them, take all their identification away, so they have no ability to feel that empowerment of maybe going to a police officer or someone else, because they're also now scared that they can't prove their identity and that they might be shipped back home and in a worse situation. And at that point, they don't really trust anyone. They've already had their trust broken by somebody that they might know, since many times this is somebody that they've befriended or a family member. And so therefore, they don't know who to trust. And in terms of, okay, do you see these people on the street? You know, where are they? Another very typical kind of vulnerable area would be in any sort of kind of spa or nail salon. That's one of the biggest perpetrators. some of these, I mean, I know we see them all over the place as
they're
women,
everywhere.
you know, nail salons and so forth. I know they did a study specific in Dallas, Texas, and they estimated that probably about 90% of all of those businesses were operating some form of trafficking out of the back room.
Wow.
So you literally couldn't see it, and maybe some of those women were appearing to look like they were working the normal job during the day, but they were being forced into a certain situation and they had all their identification taken away.
Wow.
So those are some of the big ones that kind of come to mind. But I think it's also the idea that as a country in the United States, we're also considered the top 3 in the world for being the worst in modern day slavery and human trafficking. Not only in how we, you know, our women and children and even young boys are being trapped into it, but it's also the fact of how we're being consumers. Wow. And how that plays into trafficking.
Okay, with as far as you mean like the internet? Is that what you mean?
Correct. The majority of the porn industry has a lot of support in the world of trafficking. It's all...
People can hide better.
Exactly. A lot of black market. I think a lot of what people think is just, well, that was a movie and everybody in it willingly took part in it and they made money, is not true generally. So I think we almost have to look at that through a different lens. Even our clothing, where our food is coming from. As I've learned, we've become such a intertwined international community that it is a little hard to kind of figure out, you know, is the dress I just bought, was that actually made in some sort of sweatshop where they are literally keeping young girls and boys enslaved, literally trapped, and unable to leave and working 20-hour days, and they don't make money that they get to send home to their family or any of that. And I've even talked to some of the bigger fashion industry, like fashion holding companies and so forth. And they are very well aware of the fact that there is probably trafficking, you know, in the assembly of some of the products that they're making.
So it's really about using human beings to make money, whether it's free labor as opposed to cheap labor, and all for profit.
Exactly.
And now, somebody watching might think, well, how do they get stuck there? Because, and I know you mentioned the people from other countries, so that makes absolute sense because you know, you don't know this, but you and I know the city like, you know, in and out, throughout. And I think about these stories that I hear about people being kidnapped, and you just wonder, okay, I suspect they're targeting young people, but you're worried, like, is somebody gonna try to kidnap me and use me for that? So you sit there and go, how can that happen? How, it's in your mind, you're like, I wish somebody would approach me. So it must be something vulnerable, even about locals, that's happening to, because it seems like it's hard. I can't see them getting away with that with you or I. So what's going on that makes that person more susceptible?
And I agree to some extent. As much as I look at it and I go, where I might be vulnerable is if I am in another country, somebody is targeting a woman that looks like me. This is very frightening to say, but if I were pregnant, in the world of sex trafficking, pregnant women are quite the hot commodity these days.
Oh my gosh.
So there's certain things about me that could still make me a target to forcibly be kidnapped. However, so many of the typical stories out there, how did somebody land in sex trafficking, or how did somebody land in labor trafficking? How did somebody get moved from one country to another? You know, those kind of typical situations. So many of them are from somebody that became a friend. It could be through an online game. I'm actually working with a woman who owns a company that is looking at online gaming and kind of how to educate parents a little bit more on the fact that there's a way that you slowly over a period of time, because you have to think with the mindset of a trafficker, they're not looking at kids and our teenagers and women and children as something they've got to snatch off the street and they only have a few minutes to do it. They're looking at it as, I have this continual grooming process that over time I'm going to befriend this young adult, this teenager, this young child. I'm going to lure them into some situation or some location and then be able to then trap them into a situation.
So the game has changed.
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more, I think, of that long game because it is a real economy out there. It's huge. The black market on the internet, let alone just in person, is huge. There is a real, mafia out there that is supporting it. And I know mafia has this connotation of like just a bunch of Italian guys or some like just negative connotation towards like one group or something. But mafia is just organized crime. And that's all it is. And organized crime is everywhere. But they're starting to see that, especially organized crime, and this includes gangs within inner cities, they're starting to see that moving drugs is really hard. Most states it's illegal. Those states where it's legal, they're now competing with legalized businesses and growers and so forth. Drugs are very hard to move across borders, as we can tell from what the cartel has done in Mexico, having to dig these elaborate holes and everything. Drugs are something that it takes time to grow, to manufacture, and then when you sell it, it's gone. You may have created an addict that will keep coming back for more, but it's gone and you have to go through the whole process and then sell it again. Whereas human beings are easy to move because you can convince them, whether you're coercing them or scaring them, to kind of say what you want them to say. It's just easier to move them in general across state lines, across borders. And it's a product that will basically be something that you can keep selling again and again and again.
Wow. It's scary. And you are just like a walking encyclopedia about this issue. And
I'm trying.
For those who understand what that is, because some people don't say, what's an encyclopedia? But anyway, we're going to take a break. Well,
Okay.
actually, we're going to take a break and talk to. I have a bit of a conversation with Sujo John.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Great.
and again, he is a survivor of 9/11. So we're going to hear his story, and then you're going to have to listen and watch next week, because Cathy will be back, and we'll talk more about this whole issue of sex trafficking. And then we'll hear more from Sujo John in the show next week about sex trafficking, how he is helping survivors through his experience of surviving 9/11. And so it's just a fascinating story from Cathy and from Sujo John. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to him one-on-one after this. Hi, I'm Kelly Vaughn, and this is Inside Indy, and today we're on the road, and joining us is Sujo John, and he has a fascinating story that he wants to share with us today on Inside Indy, starting with a survivor of September 11th, all the way to helping those victims of sex trafficking to be survivors. Welcome to Inside Indy.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you.
Wow. Now, first of all, I said before we started, you look so young, and I thought, for anybody who's been through September 11th, I would think would come out with a lot of scars, but you are a survivor. Tell us what happened September 11th, 2001, that morning.
It's hard to believe it's almost 18 years to that day that changed America and the world, that literally shook this country. And since 9/11, so much has changed. The wars that have been fought, the way we travel. So definitely a defining moment for this generation. So it's a story that's impacted all of us. But for me and my wife, it's a story that literally changed us. Of all the places I would find work after having moved to America in February of 2001 from India, it was the World Trade Center.
Kidding.
So I moved here in February of 2001, and as I started looking for work, I find work on the 81st floor of the North Tower with a company called Network Plus, a telecommunications company. My wife finds work on the 71st floor of the South Tower with this company called Morgan Stanley. So we were both working there, and she was 4 months pregnant at that time. So 3 lives were spared that day. So that day actually started off as a clear, cloudless day. I made my way from my home, I made my way to the city. I'm on the 81st floor looking out the windows, and I get to see the glorious view of the Lady with the Torch. And these thoughts running through my mind. I've been in America now for 6 months. I came here with nothing, but I'm blessed. I'm making money, I'm going up the corporate ladder, but I feel a sense of emptiness. There's got to be something more than this. So I decided to write an email to a friend of mine that would go to my church in New Jersey. And I wrote to my friend Tom saying, Tom, something's happening to me. I know there's a call of God upon my life. These last 6 months I've been chasing stuff. There's got to be something more. I sent an email out, and about 40 minutes after sending that email, 8:46 in the morning, I hear this incredible explosion. This is American Flight 11 flying coast to coast, Boston to LA. This huge jet plane comes crashing in, and part of the wing of the plane tears into our floor.
Are you? So this was above you. So what floors
Well,
did it hit?
the major impact of the plane coming in was about 10 floors above us, but the angle at which the plane went in resulted that part of the wing of the plane tears into our floor. It dumped. There was 7 to 8 people that died on our floor at the point of impact, and there was jet fuel. You know, the plane was flying at 440 miles an hour, 10,000 gallons of jet fuel. So all that jet fuel dumped, and fire breaks out all around us. Walls collapsing. I look up, there's a huge crater. I can actually see 10 floors directly above us. So we were on the ground, and I'm saying, God, this building is going to go down. I'm never going to see my wife. I'm never going to see the child she's carrying. I'm never going to see my parents again. And as we were lying there, someone on our team rallies us and says, we've got to beat this fire. We've got to look for a way out. So we started crawling away, looking for the nearest way.
Could you see anything, or was it
we had
all
smoke
black?
and we had fire, but it wasn't that bad. And we looked for a stairwell. The closest stairwell was on our right. So we get to the stairwell, and that's when I realized there's hundreds, thousands of people joining on that stairwell from all these floors. And I'm thinking about my wife now, 4 months pregnant, usually on the 71st floor of the other tower around 8:40, and it's already 8:40, past 8:40 in the morning. And that's when we hear another explosion, and many watching this will remember that moment, turning on their television. This is the second plane crashing into the second tower. So I'm running down with a very heavy heart, trying to reach my wife, but cell phones aren't working. But I get to the 43rd or the 44th floor when I see this sight of that America will never forget, of firemen, policemen making their way up as we are making our way down. So we high-fived them saying, you guys are the real heroes, God be with you. We had no idea then that would be the last time we would be seeing these brave men.
Did you think at that moment was a good idea for them to go up? I mean,
No,
did
we
anybody
didn't.
have a sense that the place
no
was
one
going
knew.
to collapse?
You're right. Nobody knew that building was going down. But on every floor, because of the fire and because of the jet fuel, there was fire. So a lot of us thought, like, why are they going up? Because the top parts were mostly being evacuated, but they went looking for people. And then, you know, when I tell that part of the story publicly, I talk about on 9/11, America and the world saw the worst form of evil come and attack this country. And the first response to that attack didn't really come to the military. The first response came to these men. They showed the world what this country was made up of. That there are men and women so willing to lay down their lives so that others like me are around to share our stories. So it's a story of incredibly brave men and women that live among us, that are heroes, that step up. And when we're trying to tuck our children to bed and a siren goes off somewhere, that's just a reminder that somebody left his comfort zone and stepped into a place of danger just to make communities safe, cities safe across America. So anyway, going back to my story, we high-fived them saying, you guys are real heroes, continue your way down. It took me an hour and 20 minutes to come down 81 floors.
It took an hour and 20 minutes
Hour and 20
because there's so
minutes.
many people.
There's people, and then firemen making their way up, and the access points were not that wide for us. The stairwell was good enough for us to be running down in 2 files. But I'm still in the building. I'm on the level called the plaza. So this plaza was an open space right in between these towers, and from that point in the building, my eyes fell on this plaza. We're all looking at this plaza, which used to be a place where tourists gather to take pictures of buildings as a place of life, but now it's a place of death, bodies and body parts, the fuselage of the plane burning. So people are breaking down seeing that site, and we were told, avoid this scene on your left, turn on your right, go down one more level, and once you get to the concourse level, get out of these burning towers. So I make my way to the lowest level, and the concourse level.
Now the concourse, is that below? Because I know there's like an underground of the
Yeah,
World
no, there's
Trade
one more level below, that's the underground. The concourse level is a street level.
Okay.
And that level, they were letting people out of the building. They were evacuating the building from different exit points. And I'm saying to myself, what if my wife has been delayed to work? If that's her story, she could be near her building. So I'm frantically looking for her. So I'm walking towards the South Tower on the concourse building. There were 7 buildings together called the World Trade Center complex. And you know, there's all these signs that lead you so easily from that lobby level, the concourse level. And then that's where my story begins. I'm in the right in the middle of this revolving doors that lead you in front of these towers, when I hear this incredible roar. The ground that I'm standing on is shaking. It felt like it was an earthquake. The glass is shattering. Screams of people around me. I thought it was a bomb, but I soon realized this was not a bomb. The very building I'd approached, the South Tower, is imploding and going down. So I tell people when I share that part of my story, for the first time in my life, I realized I'm walking to the valley of the shadow of death. So I said, God, if I die here, where will I go? But I had this tremendous peace that if I were to die, I would make it to heaven. 15, 20 people with me, we huddled together. I'm on top of men and women, there are men and women on top of me. And I felt very impressed to challenge them to pray. So we prayed, and then we scattered, and we're lying there. And after about 15, 20 minutes of lying there, being buried in debris, thinking I'm going to die, I feel someone pull me. And as this man gets close enough to me, I began to pull him. And he says to me, he's with the FBI. So we both told each other we're going to die. We were choking. I pulled my jacket over my face, and even that was not helping. It's soot, ash, cloud. We can barely see each other. Just when we thought we were going to die, choking and all that stuff, I see a red light flashing through the soot and the smoke. That light leads us out of the pit. It was a flashing light coming of an ambulance. We get out. The man says, I got to go back, get more people. The ground shakes again. The North Tower, the building I would work in, begins to go down. This brave American died that day. He's actually the only FBI agent to have died that day. That's the unfortunate.
So the gentleman who helped you ended up perishing going back.
So both the towers collapsed. I'm on the streets of Manhattan, angry, confused, bitter, saying, God, why did you spare me? For sure, my wife is dead. Unknown to me, my wife was late to work by 2 minutes. She gets off the last train that made its way to the basement of the building. By then, the North Tower is hit. So late that day, my cell phone rings for the very first time. And when I said, hello, it's my wife on the other side, her life was spared. She had spent hours thinking I was dead. She thought I was gone. So it was an amazing moment for us. So that doesn't quite finish our story. So both lives spared, we reunite, but there's this fear about what about the baby? My wife is 4 months pregnant. The stuff she'd inhaled, all the trauma. So our doctor, when we connect with her doctor, they told us to abort the baby. But we were like, no, we're not going to do that, because we felt there was a heartbeat. And now looking back, you know, he was born in early 2002. He's an athletic kid, 17 years of age, getting ready to go to college next year. And so we've seen the mercy of God, we've seen the grace of God, and what is said in the Bible where he says, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion.